Georgia has another exciting season ahead, especially when you look at the schedule. Excitement is not just winning, but college football is fun. Georgia's schedule is fun. Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Florida. They just flipped the SEC schedule. This time, Georgia doesn't have to take as many daunting road trips as it did a year ago. Still has some road trips. I'm trying to rank. I've got it listed out. Georgia's most difficult games. And this is hard to do at this point in the season, but I'm doing it based off of three things: the context of the matchup and the history of it, the location, and what we know about how good these teams are right now at the beginning of May. Ryan Coley from Dawg Post. Let's go ahead and jump into it, because the first couple of ones are easy, right? I think that Georgia, and look, there's no shade. I think Georgia's easiest matchup is against Austin Peay. I always feel like I pronounce that wrong. That comes in week 2 this coming season, September 6th. It's a home game. It's one of those games that Georgia should absolutely, unequivocally, 100% win. Georgia's got 3 of those games on this list, so to no surprise, those are going to be the first 3 matchups that I talk about. But I think I'm ranking at number 12. I'm ranking Austin Peay as Georgia's easiest game. 11th, second easiest, or 11th most difficult, however you want me to frame it. I'm going with Charlotte at November 22nd. All right. Look, they've gone up in conferences, right? So Charlotte's on the rise, and I just think that, look, it's tough to rank these, but it's towards the end of the season. Georgia should be in at least somewhat of a groove, and I think that they win that game super easily. And number 10, I have Marshall. The reason why out of the 3 of these, the main reason I put this as Georgia's most difficult of the 3 is it's week 1. It's game 1 in Sanford Stadium. We've seen Georgia take weeks to get things rolling. If that's the case for the 2025 Georgia Bulldogs, then you can't necessarily assume that everything is going to be moving smoothly for Georgia's offense at the beginning of the year. So I have Marshall as the 10th most difficult game. Just that context of it, right? All these were home games, these first 3 that I'm talking about, but the context with Marshall being the first game of the year. It's going to be Gunner's first start heading into 2025, his second start in general, a new offense that needs to be figured out. I just think there's a lot of new, and sometimes that can be difficult to get rolling. First SEC game I have on this list is Georgia's home game against Kentucky. So I think this is the 9th most difficult game. Look, Kentucky brought in a lot of transfers. They were one of the worst teams in the SEC, one of probably the 2 or 3 worst teams in the conference last season. I know that Georgia went up to Lexington at the beginning of the year and struggled, but this is at home. Georgia will be significantly better than the Wildcats. They got Zach Calzada in the portal. They got Kendrick Law from Alabama in the portal, be the weapon. I'm not saying it's ragtag, but they've brought in some pieces to replace what they had, replace Brock Vandegrift. And look, I just don't think this Kentucky team is going to be that good. And I think that when you take into account that this game is in Athens, it'll be in Sanford Stadium, it's the reason why I have them as the 9th most difficult game. At 8 most difficult, the road trip to Mississippi State. This comes in November. Look, Mississippi State's not going to be a great team either, right? They're going to be in a similar tier as Kentucky this coming season, but the fact that Georgia's got to go on the road to do it is why I slid Mississippi State over Kentucky as a more difficult matchup. Hey, look, I've been out there. I've been to Starkville. It could get loud. They've got their noisemakers. They've got their, oh my God, what are they? The cowbells, and I know that the cowbells are a big deal. Look, but Mississippi State, just not a great team. I know that they gave Georgia a little bit of a fight in Sanford Stadium this past season, but I expect Georgia to go out there and to handle business. So a couple of SEC matchups out of the way. Next, I put Georgia Tech. This is going to be neutral site, so the 7th most difficult game for Georgia. This is the getting towards the halfway mark. We're about the halfway mark here with these teams. So last year, right, in Sanford, Georgia is down by multiple scores. They come back in the second half. They tie it. It's dramatic. There's a turnover. And then it goes to 8 overtimes. And Haynes King, it's one of the best individual performances I've seen in person from a college football player. It just is, right? The stats he had, the plays he made, they put Georgia to the brink, and it took 8 overtimes, a lot of craziness and a lot of guts and time to beat them. And look, I know this is neutral site. I know it's in Atlanta, but Georgia will dominate that crowd out there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and Georgia plays in that stadium a ton. I know you still have Haynes King. They lost a couple of their weapons, the Yellow Jackets did, but I do think it's going to be a pretty good Georgia Tech team. But when I take into account that this is Georgia's second stadium, and Georgia should be better, and look, this is Georgia's been dominating Georgia Tech, and the fact that it took 8 overtimes to do it last year, there's going to be a little bit of embarrassment there. So moving on to 6, what I think is Georgia's 6th most difficult game this coming season. Home against Ole Miss. Home against Ole Miss. So I don't know if any of these are surprises here, but this is how I'm ranking it. Look, Ole Miss has lost a lot. They lost their best receiver. They lost their quarterback. They lost tons of defensive talent. And Georgia got embarrassed by them a year ago out there in Oxford. Rushing the field at the end. I was down there on the field when it got rushed. That is, if you're Georgia, that's an embarrassing thing to be a part of. They've taken down the goalpost. I have a whole video of that. And it just, that is insane, those moments. And I think that revenge will be had for Georgia in Sanford Stadium. It's a home game. It's, I think that's a November game, October 18th, middle of the season. Georgia should be kind of in a groove at that point. And look, I just think Ole Miss lost so much. I know Georgia lost a lot, but to me, it's harder for Ole Miss to replace the type of talent that it did than Georgia will have to this season. Next, at Auburn. I think Auburn is Georgia's 5th most difficult matchup. And look, Auburn might not be as good as a team as Ole Miss. It's kind of difficult for me to project at this point. It looks like Jackson Arnold is going to be the quarterback for the Tigers this coming season, the transfer from Oklahoma. But why is it 5th? Why is Auburn higher than Ole Miss and Georgia Tech? Jordan-Hare Stadium is one of the toughest places to play in college football. I've been there 3 times now. It gets loud. Those fans are rowdy. And crazy things happen. Crazy things happen in that stadium. I don't even know how to explain it, but you've seen Auburn games throughout the course of history and just how rowdy it is there and the crazy things that happen. And look, the last time Georgia was there, it was difficult, and it took them till the last couple minutes of the game to win some Brock Bowers heroics, right? So I do think it's difficult to play at Auburn, and I've got that as the 5th most difficult game for Georgia this coming season. Number 4, I was surprised how high I slotted this. I debated putting Auburn over it. I debated putting Ole Miss over it. I debated putting Georgia Tech over it. But the neutral site game against Florida in Jacksonville. Why? To me, Florida is on a mental rise. I think that they played better towards the end of the year last season. I think that DJ Lagway, a legitimate NFL talent at quarterback heading into year 2, should take a step forward. And I think he is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country. I think that they return a lot of older players, and I think that matters in winning and leadership. And it seems like this program is backing Billy Napier. And I think that, look, who knows how that game goes if Lagway doesn't get hurt last year. Carson Beck was not playing well. Georgia wasn't playing well. And I think 34-20 is not indicative of how tight of a game it was down in Jacksonville a year ago. I think that's Georgia's 4th most difficult game. 3rd, at Tennessee. Now, I am in the boat that I think Tennessee takes a step back this coming season. I don't think it's a college football playoff team. I think that it lost too much. And then the quarterback drama you get in the offseason just doesn't help. Georgia also just kind of has owned the Vols recently. They've owned them up in Neyland. I know it's a tough pace to play. It's early in the season, and that makes it even more difficult. It'll be Gunnar Stockton's first true road start. So there's a lot to take into account. It's still a difficult game. It's Georgia's 3rd most difficult game. But I don't think it's quite as difficult as the next 2. Alabama, number 2. Part of that is the mental context. Now, Alabama does return a good bit of talent. They've got the 2nd best wide receiver in college football. They've got some good young players in the secondary. They've got some good players in the front 7. I think Alabama is a candidate to be like a wild card next season. They could be better or worse, to be honest. the mental hump of beating the Tide. Georgia just has a mental issue with them, and that's just the case. But it is at home, and I don't think that Alabama's quite as good as Texas, who I think is Georgia's most difficult game, and it's because it's the best team that Georgia will play most likely, and it's projected to be a better team than Georgia. I don't know if that'll be true, but Georgia beat Texas twice last year, neutral site and then in Austin. Texas is going to want revenge. They've got, to me, an upgrade at quarterback. They've got a lot of young defensive talent. They've got young weapons for Arch Manning, and it's going to be a really good football team. I think it's Georgia's most difficult game in 2025. It doesn't look that daunting, right? Only 3 true road games this coming season, a couple of neutral sites, 7 home games. Things should be a little bit simpler for Georgia in 2025.